Welcome, everyone. Over to you,
Hello,
Laurie.
Hello. We'll just wait as people kind of trickle into the space here. Hope everyone's managing to keep cool.
Getting to the Zoom chat is becoming like getting into the inside the doors of the theater.
Yeah, we need lobby music or something.
Yeah.
Are there a few more in the room, Lisa, in the waiting room? No. We have about 10 or so more who registered, so we might just give it another minute or two. Just give it another minute or so. Okay, maybe we'll get started if that's all right with folks. We have a slightly more intimate group today. I'm Laurie Gillis. I work with the Atlantic Presenters Association, and our members live and work on the ancestral and unceded territories of several Indigenous peoples: the Mi'kmaq, the Wolastoqiyik, the Passamaquoddy, Beothuk, the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatsiavut, and the Innu of Nitassinan. And I am honored to live in Jabuktuk here in Halifax. That's where I am based. We have folks from across the region here today, and I want to welcome you all to this fourth in a series, I guess. Are we in number 4 of conversations that we should be having and should be hearing? And it's a partnership with Prismatic that we're very excited and very honored to have developed. And I think there's exciting potential for this kind of conversation and these kind of activities to continue in the future. I think it's necessary, and we're really fortunate to have Raeesa and Shahin kind of, they reached out to us, and so we're really fortunate to be working with them and being inspired by them to pull these conversations together. So I think I might ask Shahin or Raeesa to kind of pop in here and contribute to the conversation and maybe kind of get things going. And we're really hoping to kind of have a real open dialogue today. Since we are a small group, I think it's quite possible to do that. But I'll also mention, you know, if you have a question or want to pop something in and someone's already speaking, just feel free to use the chat, and we have a couple people monitoring it, so we'll make sure that every question or any comment or concern gets addressed. We really want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak or, you know, have their voice.
Thanks, Laurie. I'll jump in here before I kind of pass it over to Shahin. So I'm noticing some names. I feel like I've seen some of these names attend the conversation before, which we're so glad to have you back. Thank you for being here. And I just kind of wanted to express the intent behind this conversation a little bit further. So a few weeks ago, as the pandemic was we were right in the middle of the pandemic, we recognized as we were participating on so many calls that there was voices missing from the conversation. And those voices were artists, particularly Indigenous artists and artists of color. And so, you know, Shahin and I came together with a thought and reached out to APA just to hold this space. And there's no true agenda. There's no, you know, reasoning particularly to have this, except for to hold space so that we can all talk about, you know, just questions that are in our head or maybe concerns we have or really positive things that are happening. But we just wanted to kind of come together and feel that personal connection, because that's something that's so important to us at Prismatic is to be a community and be there with one another. So I just wanted to outline that. So anyone who is on the call, feel free to, you know, unmute your mics whenever you want to chime in and speak a little bit. But I kind of wanted to just throw a question out there, and Shahin, maybe you can kind of take it for us. One of the things that we've been talking about is the sustenance of live performance, but still acknowledging and recognizing the digital shift. So, you know, we as an organization and presenters are looking through that, but I kind of just wanted to ask, you know, Shahin to start, and then whoever else may have an opinion with that as well to chime in. What does that new era of performing arts look like, or what does that mean to you?
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Well, but maybe I should step back for a second and say, you know, what's in my mind, so I can answer your question more accurately from my perspective, Raeesa. Right now, I think you know, what is on the table is how we're surviving. I think that's the big question: how we're surviving. So for me, I have decided that I'm going to give this 2 years. I think it's better for my mind to have a timeline. So I'm thinking that half of the year is gone with this situation. So I'm looking at another year and a half. It's been helping me. It may not be realistic, but it is my reality right now. Another thing is that, and that supports the health of my mind and my body, to be able to just survive and know that where I am and what's going on. And in short term, I've been trying to look at what is immediately available to me, to be able to work. And what is immediately available, it means that the circle gets closer and closer and smaller and smaller. So I think that's the area that I've been trying to survive and be able to work and continue working. Now, with that in mind, I've said this from very beginning of you know, when this whole thing started, and there was a lot of calls for doing work online and digital work, and recording live performances and putting them out, or just live feed, that I'm not a fan. I see a great danger in undermining the spirit of live performance, people coming together. And the reason I do theater is that people come together. Actors and audiences, they come together in one shared space and have a dialogue and have a gathering. And that in person is very important to me. At the same time, I understand as artists, as everybody else, we have to survive. We have to survive, and we have to be realistic about the reality of our time. And if we can't do work together, perhaps online, just like now, is the only way to do some of the work. So I'm accepting it with a lot of hesitation, and with keeping that in mind, that this is not my my preference, and I continue to worry about how much it will undermine when things get back to some sort of normalcy. Because I think we can all agree that we will not be, in a year from now, we will not be living in a world that we were living in 2019. Things will be drastically different. A lot of things will be different. So that's where I am. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone have, I'm just going to throw it out right now, anyone that's on the call, does anyone have any questions or comments that they kind of want to just throw out there rather than me just continually asking questions? I'll give it a couple seconds for space. Okay, well, I guess I'll continue then. And this question, I guess, is more, it could be APA, Prismatic, or anyone else that's listening. This is kind of just an open thought that I wanted to put out there. So now there are organizations that are starting to open with safety protocols, and we're seeing, you know, kind of a shift into the starting point of coming out of the pandemic. And I think I really want to kind of talk about collaboration and working together and what that looks like, but not necessarily in the sense of like, hey, let's co-present something, let's collaborate on a work together. What other notions of collaboration do you guys feel could exist within this space as a result or coming out of the pandemic, outside of just like working together on something specific, like whether that be relationship building or community building? Does anyone kind of have any thoughts on what working together can look like in the future? That's probably a big question.
Well, I can. Sorry.
Sure.
Oh, I thought that was me. I can maybe start it. Like I said, for me, in short time, you know, it's seeing what's around me, and what is around us right now is much less than before, because we can't go out and do the things that we used to do before. However, at the same time, we have friends like Zoom that they were there, but not as much as we have discovered them and being able to work with them now. So a lot of work are happening like that, play readings or even rehearsals or development of film. New York market just started doing some limited production for film activities just last week. You know, London, England, they had said that they're gonna start doing rehearsals for theater scene and dance with bringing people into a quarantine, which hasn't happened yet. but I think that's totally a possibility. And just 2 weeks ago, we were talking, and I think it was Laurie from APA was mentioning that a lot of the theaters are thinking about opening up their space with the rules that are in place, allowing people to go and do use the bigger spaces with a smaller number of people to be able to go and develop work. And I think it's happening. I think it's starting to happen, which is great. Yeah, we're for my own theater work, I'm doing stuff in the open space in park. But for Prismatic, we're looking at that model, how we can work with people who have venues, and a few months left of the good weather in Canada, maybe we can do things outside. So that's happening. We're already in process of doing those things.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Shahin. I think there's been a lot of opportunity for artists and presenters to collaborate in a different level. A lot of our members are now offering space for development of work, and so really building relationships with, in particular, local artists in their community, I think is really starting to kind of develop, and that's a whole kind of new thing for a lot of our members. I think artist development is not really in their mandate, but I think it's an important thing for them to be involved in. And I think this pandemic has offered that opportunity to collaborate at that level. I think that's very interesting. I also think it's provided organizations like ours to do things with organizations like Prismatic. And I think we've had, the times have kind of forced us into that a little bit, but it's also giving us time to really think about how we want to move forward as an organization. And so I think this time has afforded a lot of our members that opportunity to kind of maybe do some introspective work, look at themselves a little bit, and then maybe move out and try to collaborate and find people outside of their organization that they need to have in their organization. So I think that has been an opportunity that this time has offered as well. I think people are slowly starting to look at that as opportunities. And we're hoping to kind of, as a service organization, not push that opportunity, but to provide maybe some professional development and some support to them to kind of help move outside their typical circles, to start collaborating and working with whether it's other like artists of color, Indigenous organizations, that sort of thing, in their own communities. So I think that it's not more, I think it's just given us time. It's not really forcing us to collaborate differently, but more just to think about maybe who we should be collaborating with.
Laurie, I wonder, okay, so this is starting to happen. This is, people are opening up their space and saying, okay, here's the space and maybe some tech support and come to work. I mean, if a building gets open, it's not just opening the door is the expense. Somebody has to be there, lights has to go on. There's always expense and there's always people involved. When people are involved, then we're talking about different unions and contracts, and what are some of the challenges that might be arising from this? I mean, I was talking to a friend, have a venue, a big venue, and they started this. But now they're facing, one of the problems they're facing is that, and we were talking about the issue of wearing masks for the actors on stage or not, which, Nova Scotia is making an amendment to the rules. And we were talking about that very point. And he was mentioning now that even though that the actors might be able to not wear masks, then he has to see where that stands with their union, because the union might have a problem with the actors not wearing a mask. So I'm just asking in general, I'm just putting it up. I mean, I see some people are on the call that yourself and others, you know, we're very familiar with this issue. Can you see some of these challenges, and how can we get, how can we work with them?
Yeah, there's definitely those challenges, definitely. Not just the financial, but that whole human resource situation and people feeling safe in their workplace. I guess really I don't know. I think people have to work it through on a case by case. I don't know, Val, if you have any kind of comments on that, having, you know, experience working in a larger venue here in Atlantic, Canada, and maybe Lisa too. Any thoughts on that? But
yeah, I would say it's case by case, because I think that the theaters have also been doing, they each have their own reopening plans, but I think those reopening plans also involve not only reopening to audiences, but even sort of back it up to what they're doing now, which is opening it to artist space and having clients in their space. So I think it's case by case, because they may have their own rules that they want to follow. So artists, what we had suggested in our document reopening guidelines that we had sent to our members was that they have a reciprocal agreement. So because artists may well have their own precautions that they want people taking around them too. So we've suggested that they each have their own reciprocal agreement. And so I think it would be venue by venue, space by space, artist by artist kind of thing. And I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I know Lysandra is on the call. And she's at the Playhouse, and I know that they've put out a call for artists. So I'm not sure what they've talked about as far as their plans backstage and on stage kind of thing. But maybe Lysandra, you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry you can't see my picture, but my work laptop doesn't have a camera, so I'm always a black space there with my name. Sorry about that. But yeah, we've just launched this artist in residence call out to artists. So it's called Intermission. And we've applied for funding from the province and the city, and we're doing our own fundraising as well. So we want to have as many residencies as possible, and it's open to multidisciplinary artists, with priorities being Fredericton and New Brunswick. So the residencies can be from up to 1 day to 4 days, and we're paying the artists a fee per day. So $100 per artist per day. And they can design their own residencies. It could be, I don't know, there's also funding in place for each residency to have their own mentor or expert or whatever, if they want, you know, an outside eye, or if they want to have just someone to help them direct a play or to give them feedback. So there's funding for that as well. And yeah, so we're really excited. I've had some great inquiries from multidisciplinary artists that run the gamut from, you know, someone wanting to know how to plug in amps instead of their sound system, and be with the technicians on stage and really understand how sound works and how to best, you know, design something for different venues as they step into different venues, you know, as a performing musician, to, you know, musical theater people, to dance people wanting to work with musicians on like a new piece. So it's been really exciting, actually, from hearing so many sort of depressing and you know, things coming off the programming and sort of just saying, oh, postpone, but then I'm getting all these great ideas coming in. So it's really been inspiring. I'm hoping we can raise a lot of money so that we can do more than 6 residencies, but so far we've got funding for a possibility of 6 or 7. So yeah, and then what we're doing too is we're assuming that artists are in their own cohort or bubble, so they are allowed to rehearse together if they like, without a mask, but I believe all our technicians will, you know, be wearing masks. I did get a call the other day from the Frederickson Symphony Orchestra because they last time performed, it was 106 people on stage. So I'm not sure, you know, if they do their concert in the fall, what's going to happen there, but they have to provide their own safety regulations for that if they're going to be performing in the fall. And I think some of the orchestras in Canada are already having some kind of protocols in place for numbers like that on stage. But I was laughing because I was like, that would mean there's more people on stage than there is on the audience. Because we're usually 709 seat venue and we're down to between 130 and 150 people. So yeah, so basically I'll be quiet now.
That's great, Sandra. That's really good. Could you tell everybody a little about the organization? I think we missed that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's at the Fredericton Playhouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Good job.
Yeah, thanks.
That's really great.
I'm coming from the perspective of being an artist myself. So I used to knock on the door of the Playhouse all the time and say, hey, can I do a residency? And they were like, well, we're quiet during, you know, January and the summer. And if you can piece it between this time and this time, you know. So for me, when I stepped into this role of the programming director, I'm also sort of coming from the director, the place and the experience of being an artist my whole life. So it was really exciting for me to be able to implement something like this, because I understand from the other perspective what we need and what, you know, is, it was just kind of perfect timing, actually. Yeah.
That's really nice. Good for you.
I'm just going to move us to the chat for a second. So Shirley asked a question. Do you think that there is any room for collaboration at this time in history with education? As a venue manager, I agree it is difficult to open our doors because of expenses, etc. But it seems to be a wonderful time for Prismatic to work with students on education. And I think that's a good segue because I think there's 2 portions here. We're talking about artists and creation, but then also education. And that's something that we actually hold to a very high regard and importance in our regular programming and have since the inception of Prismatic, and that is in master classes. So we work with an educational institution, for example, the Fountain School of Performing Arts at Dalhousie University, and when we bring our artists for their performances, one of the mandates that we always chat with our artists about is the outreach component. So I appreciate you asking that, Shirley, and that is something definitely that we do and we have been doing, and even this year, you know, we're already talking. We know that Dalhousie has shifted online.
That's right. If you don't mind me talking for a second, that's what I was going to say. I think there's more of an opportunity with the K through 12 because we know that they're happening, and maybe you need to change your focus a little bit at this particular time in history and get them a little younger. You know, it doesn't look like universities are going to be open for a while, does it?
No, universities definitely won't. And I mean, we're going to, you know, keep our eye on what the restrictions are for students in junior high and high school. But I think that's a really great point to bring up that, you know, I think the education should and can start younger for sure. So I very much appreciate that sentiment.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're on it, Sharon.
Say that again, Shane, sorry?
No, I was just saying to Sherry that we're on it. I mean,
yeah, we appreciate that.
No, I understand that, and I think it's the biggest place for collaboration at this.
No, you're not.
Really
You're absolutely right. I'm agreeing with you, and I'm appreciating your call for it.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. That's where the real work should happen with the younger people.
It's got to.
And yeah. You're gonna get a call from a Prismatic person.
Nadia said, and these are stressful times for youth. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, bringing art and creation into their lives is definitely a way that they can cope for sure with the pandemic. So yay. Thanks everyone. We appreciate those thoughts.
Yeah, and I know that's one thing that presenters have been concerned about is their school programming not going ahead. So that's an interesting thought,
Yeah.
actually, for presenters too, like how maybe they can use their space and digital technology to work with schools.
Yeah, and this is the time, I guess, we only have a couple of months, less than 2 months for the school time. Yeah. Can I, could I, I don't know if Raeesa had another question, but I had something.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay, so I was, we were talking about some of the big companies, big theater companies in the past couple of weeks that have canceled their programming. And that's very like a big time difference from the ones that they did it earlier. And now these were the ones who waited for a while because they were pushing their programming down the line, and they just did that. I mean, the biggest one was recently was Can Stage in Toronto. And that's a big programming to just completely cancel it. And I was talking to Maggie, and I hope she's able to come and talk about this, but she said something very interesting. I was saying that, you know, this is very strange that they're doing it now. And what do they see that we don't see right now? I was trying to see what is it that they see now. And Maggie's suggestion was actually they, I'll let Maggie, if she's able to come and talk about it, to talk about that. I thought it was a very interesting way of looking at what's ahead.
Thanks, Shahin. Hi, everybody. So Shahin and I had been just sort of, thinking about what does it signal when a major presenter shuts down for the year and kind of, later than others did, I guess, and cancels an entire season after talking about pushing it back. And I think where I landed with that is that, right now organizations can follow one of two paths. One is that there's an assumption or a prediction that we're going to be dealing with pandemic circumstances for an extended period of time. And in order to get back to anything that looks semi-normal, we'll have to invest in possibly physical changes to a performing space, certainly operational changes, maybe staffing changes, new policies, basically investing a lot, as you all know, into making a lot of change and updating things and taking that path. Alternatively, if an organization thinks that this situation may pass relatively quickly and that within, say, a year or less than a year, we're going to be back to operating close to what normal looked like, then it might make more sense to just shutter for the year, but not invest into all of that change and all of that updating, in the hopes that that won't be in the end necessary. So, my hope is that an organization as big as that one, took its time to really look into what they thought their options were and what made the most sense. And so have signaled, hopefully, that they think things will pass quickly enough. At least I think we can talk about Atlantic Canada being kind of an exceptional region right now in North America, and that things are looking relatively good, relatively under control there. And that maybe, by next spring, summer, certainly rolling into next year, fall, when a theater season would restart, that, things will be close enough to normal that they can just proceed without having invested a lot into changing. That's what I interpreted anyway. Does that kind of summarize it, Shahin?
Yeah, I mean, I still don't accept it, but but I mean, yes, I I think I don't think we'll be going to the normal that we had in 2019. I think some stuff physically in the places like theaters and gathering halls will change. But I mean, we're seeing this all over the world, that those who are holding the quarantine very tight and keeping the number of infected low, they will come ahead of everybody else when the vaccination come in. And perhaps that's what those companies are seeing, that there won't be any change and they will physically. I just have a hard time seeing that clear picture, because even, you know, with places like Atlantic Canada that you're saying that they're different from the rest of the North America, little bit of movement, I think those numbers will change. A little bit of more movement of the people, the numbers will change. That's why I don't think the changes all over the world will be that much different.
Guess we'll see.
We got a half empty, half full situation, I think, here.
Well, I mean, I think it's that, you know, everyone is evaluating based on what is available to them now and evaluating, you know, what the cost benefit scenario is for them to make changes or to try to ride it out. And, you know, it may be that, I think what will be very telling for a lot of places in Canada especially will be how things go with return to school in the fall. I think that will be really determinative of whether we're able to, you know, bring people together, especially because it looks like a lot of places are opening at least partially to bring kids back into school. So if we're able to start to bring people together and do that without spiking numbers, that's a good sign. But I think that will make a lot of that will tell us what the long term, I think, will look like. I think in the meantime, the discussion we were having earlier about exploring opportunities with schools around programming is very interesting. You know, especially where the schools are probably looking for some easy value add opportunities. I know our online curriculum for our middle schooler, he's only programmed in the mornings and then has homework to do in the afternoon. But, you know, there's possibly a lot of opportunities to, you know, do digital performances in collaboration with the schools, or do digital, you know, additional teachings in collaboration with the schools that could offer some interesting opportunities.
I see new people coming in. I see our friend Rahul Verma on the call, and I don't know if Rahul is able to speak, but I would really like to hear from Rahul, how is he and his theater work in Montreal? How is he surviving, and how is he going on with this situation? I hope Rahul can come and
yeah,
share with us.
okay.
Hi,
Rahul. I'm logging in. Thank you. Yeah, so I just made a little error in identifying the registration on the email. I was trying to speed up the reading, so didn't see that I had to send a request, which I did. So Don, thank you very much for letting me in. I'm sorry I joined late, but from your question, Shahin, I can answer what situation is here. And I mean, my company was in a very precarious situation because we had just opened a major production and it got shut down in 2 days. And I was not prepared at the time to shutting it down, because I was thinking that, okay, it's okay. I think that's the bigger theater will close. Actually, I did not have the very clear sense of the enormity of this pandemic. And I did not have a very clear sense of enormity of this pandemic for strictly a political reason. 650,000 people died in Iraq, nobody cared. And here is a pandemic, and the whole world got mobilized to closing it down. So, that political anomaly continued to play a role in my mind. But then I did have to come to the reality of how difficult it is. But one choice I made at the time is that we had made the commitment to the artist, and we had made commitment to the production. So all we would do is move them without canceling anything. And that rule still exists. So we do have a tentative booking in order to remount the same thing at the same place where it was left. So our set was up until 2 weeks ago, was still hanging in the theater, which for the security reason Watsu has to remove. So I am hoping that things will begin to open up with a partial run, meaning the reduced audience by spring or so. So that's anticipatory opening for us. But in the meantime, I think the visibility and the vitality is important. So we are keeping that by several means. One is by Zoom activities. Other one is by just making the community contact. And I think that this is an opportunity for that. The certain things we don't get to do is to let our presence be known in the communities that we work for, because the professional requirement takes so much of the time and all that. So it's just giving a little bit of a chance to go out in the community, have the conversation, even though smaller, but able to them. So that is one of the way we are going on. And I think that I've laid down a programming between now and the next some months of particularly focused on Black Lives Matter. We have a very strong anti-Asian racism in Quebec. So I'm putting some activity towards that. And then, of course, the Indigenous community and LGBTQ community. So we are holding two kinds of discussion, general discussion such as this one, and the more organized discussion with the expert opinion. And so they're working very well. There are large attendance on them. So that's more or less has been our activity. And office looks haunted when I go there and I say, this is where you used to work. It's just has changed shape so much just because there has been very little human presence there. Yeah. So that's my short story, Shahin. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Actually, there were other, I know a couple other theater companies, venues that, when this happened, their show had just started, like Canadian Theater Company in Ottawa. Their set is still on the stage, and they're going with the same thinking that you are. I guess same as what Maggie was saying, that let's just leave it and just work on other things, and things will come back to where it was, or at least close to it, and continue.
Because see, in terms of the programming, I do not see any strategic change. I say, well, it's just moving. So the case for us was not a suspension. It was just a sort of a postponement to an to undetermined date, because if the commitment is to the programming, then timing is a factor. So then just late for the timing. So the only difficulty is that we don't know what that timing would be, but we continue to maintain with that. And I think that the production that we opened, I mean, we had invested all our money. It was the final and the most expensive production of the season that we were doing, and it was doing in the and we in 2 days run we had 3 very good reviews that came out, despite the fact that the media and everything was shutting down. And I think our first review said that if the plays are to be judged on a scale of 1 to 10, this is 15. So we were just so happy with that. I said that, this is a good line to promote that. But but it sort of it didn't work out that way. So we just simply postponed this, and we paid all the actors completely. As by law, we were supposed to pay them 70%, but we did all of that because it has to be done, kind of a thing. So
Yeah,
so,
that would have been the right thing to do.
Yeah. So it's just simply shifting, and I think that hopefully the NCGL has given us a sort of a promise in principle that if they are allowed to open, then they let us come in. So
that's great. That's really good, and I'm glad you're finding ways to survive and just move on. I understand especially the political scene for artists of color working. Montreal is a little bit different from the rest of the country.
It's pretty bad. On the diversity factor, Quebec is just a little behind than the rest of the country. I mean, country is behind, but the Quebec is a little bit more behind.
Laurie and Raeesa, if you have another one, I have one more, but it's just one taking all the time.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think as we were all expecting it, but not trying not to think about it, I think we're starting to see governments, local and provincial, and finally the feds coming to a point that they're not going to have money. Some of them already have said they don't have money. And things are taking much longer than everybody thought it would. Now we're talking about, when big companies are canceling their program until end of next spring, then or some until end of 2021. Then we're talking about a very different situation financially. We already know that not that Canada makes a lot of money out of tourism or anywhere in the world, right now, but especially for us in Atlantic Canada, it is a big part of our the life in Atlantic Canada, and that's totally shut down now. So we're starting to see it, and right now the feds have come in with the extra cash to make that up. But this will, as things go on, I can see clearly things will get worse financially. Anybody else has any concern about that? And what do you think?
Well, I think that the recession is coming for sure, no question about it. I mean, I'm in a way, in a hindsight, very happy that that we have a government that won the election on a deficit budget and on the budget of spending, and continue to win on a spending, and they were doing pretty okay. So I think that they proved something, that if the governments do the public spending, the results are not necessarily austerity, but something positive. So that is still the extent and the amount of the economic loss is very big here. So recession is on the way. So the question is that it leaves us to ponder what we are doing. And I think when I hear that people are canceling the programming, then what worries me is that what's happening to the actors. What are we going? Who is paying them? What are they doing? So our company, and particularly the big ones, are they closing the activities in order to, as Maggie alluded somewhat to that effect, to lay off the staff or cut down the maintenance and cut their deficit at the expense of pandemics / not paying the actors? So what are actors going to do? who is going to support them. So certain degree of guarantee has to be assured by disclosing that what councils fund us, which is to continue to support our artists, that goal is met. And if that goal is met, then closing is justified. If that's not met, then there is a problem.
Anyone else about this issue of, the funds and the money, especially, I mean, our industry, we're so heavily dependent on government, directly from governments.
I know that in New Brunswick, the Arts MB got more funding this year than they've ever had. So, they had closed down all their artist residency funding, which I thought was silly. But anyway, I did write a letter to the board and they reopened them because you don't have to go to another province in order to do a residency. But they did get an influx in more funding for individual artists in New Brunswick. So I don't know what it's like in other provinces. But I know that also Canada Council has had, in some particular dance programming that I know, programs has had like an uptake of about 43% of people applying. So that's some stiff competition.
Yeah, I mean, APA, we were just briefly starting to talk about in our staff meeting today, quick staff meeting, just about advocacy and how we need to kind of ramp that back up again. I mean, we can ask for it, but like you're right, Shahin, if it's not there, like what, like, yeah, what?
I mean, what are we asking for? If it's not there, it's not there. I mean, there's only so much money they can print.
Yeah.
I hate to see that we're gonna come down to the end of the conversation with that.
With a hard,
high note.
But yeah, no, I was wondering because we already have seen in our region from municipality, and they gave us the signs. They said, tell us what your program is, even though the programming was already set and the funds were already set for it. But when they put that out, that Halifax wanted to know what everybody's doing or checking in again, we knew that's the sign that they're saying that the money situation is going to be different for this season already. And I was wondering if this is starting to happen in other regions too, but I guess not yet, but perhaps, I mean, this will become a reality, perhaps more in Atlantic regions first and then the rest of the country. I mean, it all depends how much money they have. But right now, I mean, I'm grateful that Heritage and Canada Council, they got together and they already foresaw that the municipalities and provinces may not be able to carry anything, and the money that was given to them from the government, they already have sent it out, and government, I think they're doing their best, supporting people in different ways, whatever ways they can. Yeah. But right now, it's, I mean, for us, for Prismatic, for example, it's not affecting our programming. We are looking, of course, like everybody else, looking at different scenarios of how can we do our programming. And like many others, we're looking at what is immediately available to us. and so we're getting very close to making our final call about, where we're going to be with our programming. Is it going to be a spread? Is going to be, how is it going to happen? Is the social distancing that is allowing more people to come together than a few months ago, is that enough to allow us to go on with our program as we thought? Yeah. And so if we can just take this last few minutes and talk about, beside, I think what we heard from Sandra was great about what they're doing, but actual performance, is anybody else working on anything like that? With the limited number of audiences and what is allowed right now?
I think that, in Quebec, they're going to set up a criteria. It's going to be released very soon, that how many people could we have in a particular theater. And usually a theater which are big enough, what used to be generally a G house, if it is running 40% capacity, they will permit. So that's the intention they are growing. I think we are also seeing an internal conflict because the people who are extremely competent in technology are pushing very hard for the art to make a switch from the live performance to the more digitalized performance. Now, there is nothing wrong with the digitalized performance, but the fact is that our life very much depends on the immediacy of live performances. So we have to continue to maintain the validity and the strength of live performance and continue to make case for that, because the council should not be allowed to invest so much in the digital side that the live performer become obsolete or become secondary. So it's a lobbying, it's a sort of and then, because what will happen is if that happens, then the technicians will become artists and artists will become obsolete. And that's a scare we have, and Quebec is very strongly pushing towards the digitalization. So so the artists have gotten at least more than 1,700 artists got together to make a joint statement that we need to maintain the integrity of the live performance. Yeah. And of course, this new thing, it just occurred to me to talk about that. Yesterday, I was in a discussion about that, to ensure the basic income for the artist and arts community. A movement that has been started by Zaneb Verji.
Thank you, Raul.
Anyone else kind of have any last thoughts or comments? Shahin, thank you for taking the lead on a few of those conversations. Those are really important to have. Or even like some, something to think about moving forward as we leave this conversation. Any thoughts? Obviously one that's been recognized is financial stability, and what that would look like, making sure the artists are supported. Is there anything else that kind of sticks out to anyone? Education for students?
Yeah, I think that education for the students is a big call and very important call, especially now we're getting close to school time. I think that's a very good one. And also another one, I think what's happening in New Brunswick with the Playhouse, what they're doing, I think we need to amplify that and talk about it as a model. It seems to me that actually, like Maggie was saying, Atlantic Canada is doing better than everybody else in North America. And it seems to me that even with activities like practically doing the work, it seems like it's happening in Atlantic Canada before other places. I mean, Quebec is just opening up, like those rules that Raul is talking about in Quebec. It's been announced in other provinces for a few weeks now. So perhaps we can amplify what's happening with in New Brunswick more for everybody to use as a model and give those people in New Brunswick more of a space to talk about it, and so we can all learn from it. Not just us in Atlantic, I think across the country can benefit from what's happening in there. I think it's very positive, it's very hopeful, and it's great, and they're doing it. It's not just saying that if things become, no, they're doing it, they're already doing it. And that's the important thing. And I think it would energize everybody that here the Playhouse is doing it, and they're already this much into it. I think this is a very good news, and makes me happy. I think everybody else can, in performing arts, can benefit from it.
Yeah, that's certainly an easy thing to do for us to help amplify that. We can do that through our network and through our colleagues across the country. I think that's a really great idea. We try and do a Bright Thoughts segment in our on a weekly basis with it's through the Alliance of Canadian Dance Networks, but we all then share it beyond those dance networks. So maybe we'll try and get it into that that newsletter if Lysandra is okay with that.
Yeah, Lysandra said the link is on their website if we want more information. So that's great. Thanks, Lysandra.
Yeah, no problem. Just about some live performances that are happening. We're just starting to program live shows, but obviously Atlantic region live shows. So it's slowly we're building a few more live events, and we want to have a few test run shows as well in early September, just for our own ticketing, because the layout of the house is very different now, and just if we have a cleaning, like a fogger between shows, if we do two shows. So we're sort of in a learning curve with that as well, but we're going to do a dry run in September for a live show, and then we're starting to program some more Atlantic musicians coming in the fall as well. Yeah.
Good for you. This is really courageous. I mean, this was available to others too, but you actually, like, instead of looking at what the financial downfall of this would be, you just jumped into it and you're doing it. So, you know, that's very courageous, and that's good for you. All the best for you.
Thank you. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any last thoughts? Just always like keeping the open space just in case anyone wants to say anything. I know this was a really intimate group, but I really appreciate everyone coming and holding space and sharing their thoughts with us. And, you know, obviously, sorry, that's my dog. I was hoping he'd stay quiet for the whole time. But I think we've got it's good to know what's going on in the country, and it's good to have, you know, certain action items of what people are doing so that we can always kind of take away different thoughts. I know, Valerie, you just said lots of good points and ideas. Thank you. And I just want to echo that sentiment. It's really nice to hear what other people are doing to keep you feeling refreshed. And you know, we had a lot of heavy hitters in that conversation, so it's nice to have something positive for everyone to kind of look forward to. So does anyone else have anything, or do you want me to wrap up? Or I would just want to stay on with you guys. I don't want to go over.
I think that's it. Maybe we're at the top of the hour, I guess. So, but thanks everyone for joining us. Like as Raeesa said, it was an intimate group, a really good conversation. And again, it was recorded, so we'll be sharing this with other members in the network who may have missed out, and once you get that in the mail, feel free to share that with anyone you think might benefit from listening. So thanks everyone. More information on the next session will be coming out, so keep an eye on that in your emails, and I think that's it for now.
Thank you, everyone. So nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.